Good morning. This is Virtual PBX admin training. The training lasts about an hour and a half or so. Basically depends on load times and if I make a mistake or not. We do record these trainings, so you can always come back later in case you have other commitments. And that also allows you to share the training with other staff members later who need to be system admins. Feel free to make use of YouTube's chat feature to ask about a feature or some more details about a feature. As they come up, I'll try to address them as I see the questions. We are here every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. We also have other videos on our YouTube channel, and I'll be referencing a couple of them as I go through it. Some of them do a better job of showing what I need to, depending on the topic. But it is 10 a.m., so let's go ahead and get started. So here you see our dash a login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. Now, to log in, we need three pieces of information. The first is your email address, right? Should be in all lowercase letters, just to make sure. Then we need your password, and then we need your account name, typically your company name. Now, if for some reason you don't have that information, like you forgot, because that happens, down here just above the sign-in bar, there's a forgot your info link. You can click on that. We still need your email address, right? That's your unique identifier. And then we need either the account name or a phone number on the account, right? One of the two. We don't need both. Then you click on the reset password button here at the bottom. That's going to send you an email. All right, it's going to have a link that lets you log in just to change your password. Right, it's not going to let you navigate away from anything else. Once you change your password, it logs you back out, takes you here. So you type in that new password, and then you also have the option here to click on Remember Me. I do recommend that you bookmark this page. That way you can get here more easily in the future instead of having to navigate through or trying to remember what it is. Now, once you get signed in, for me, the page is taking me right to my dashboard page, and that is because I have logged into this account many times. If it's your first time logging into your Dash account, however, you're going to be taken to a different page, and that is specifically your user account page. Now, you can get to that page at any time by clicking at your name over here at the top right. And here you see I'm at my user account page. Typically, the main thing that's changed is people come here to change their own passwords, right? So if you need to change your own password, click on your name at the top and click here, right? If you need to change someone else's password, that you do under the users tab. Now, also that first time logging in, the Dash wizard will have many pop-ups telling you what's going on. Also, as a system admin over here on the left, you can click on account. So you can change some of the account settings. The most common thing that's changed is the time zone and possibly the display language. If you ever need to change the account name, right, you're not able to edit this yourself. You actually need to email our billing team, which is billing, right, billing, at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the current account name and the account name you want it to change to, because there's other things they have to make sure sync up properly. Once you're done here, click on the close box just over here towards the top right, and you'll be taken to the dashboard. Now, the Dash wizard on that first login will still have some pop-ups here as well. It's going to have pop-ups as well on the user tab and the groups tab. So now up here at this top navigation bar where it says Virtual PBX, right? You always have your name, right? So you can click on that at any time to get to your user page. For many of you, to the right of your name, you'll have a D&D toggle for Do Not Disturb, right? If you click on it, it'll turn white, basically meaning it's on. That means you're not accepting calls. Now, the reason I don't have it next to my user is part of the call queues, the call center. Those two features don't work well together, so that's why it's not here. So once a user is assigned to be a member of the queues, the D&D toggle is removed automatically. All right, now I have this little phone icon here. This is because I have a web phone added to my user. Basically, this will open up a new tab and take me to webphone.virtualpbx.net. This allows me to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls, right? So it's kind of VoIP phone, right? If you don't have a web phone added to your user, that icon does not show up. The little graduation cap here icon, that will open up a new tab, and that goes right to our support pages, right? So you can see the various guides that we have. Most of the guides have screenshots of the various steps to go through. Some of them also have videos. Little chat bubble here. This opens up the chat window. Typically starts off at the bottom right of your browser window, and this allows you to chat with our support staff to help you walk you through particular features. Next up, we have the 3 horizontal line icon, or the menu icon. I think some of our documentation also refers to it as the hamburger icon. This takes you to other dash features. Right now, we're going to primarily be on the dashboard for the vast majority of the training, but we'll cover some of these other topics. Some of them are plan specific, like dynamic caller ID, meaning they're on some plans and not others. But like faxes is an included feature. Little arrow icon here to the right, that's just a logout button. Now here in the center under total users, I have 24 users, right? So these are people who are on my account who make and receive calls. Most of our plans are based on a per user basis, meaning the more users you have, the more you bill. Next, I have total devices, 46, right? This covers all my different device types. And I have a little breakdown here. First up, I have soft phone. This is a software application that acts as a phone. That means it uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. So this is a kind of VoIP phone. If you don't already know, VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol, and that just means using your internet connection to make and receive calls. All right, so I have 21 different kinds, 21 soft phone devices. This includes the VirtualPBX soft phone app or any other third-party soft phone apps. All right, then I have several soft phones, or cell phones, excuse me, right? General phone numbers. If you add a cell phone or a landline number as a device on your account, just be aware that when a call reaches that cell phone number, for example, that's an endpoint, right? Once a call reaches a cell phone, the cell phone person cannot transfer the call anywhere. That's an advantage of a soft phone app. Web phone, right? This is that Chrome or Firefox on a computer device. And then lastly, of the ones I have active, I have a SIP phone here. SIP phone is a physical device, right? It's a piece of hardware, like Yealink, Cisco, Polycom, etc. Connects typically via an Ethernet cable to get to my internet connection, then makes and receive calls. Down here, I have unregistered devices. And I have 2 of them, and this means this is 2 devices that I have disabled. Then I have total numbers, 38. So I have 38 phone numbers on my account. Your plan will include at least a number of phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. And if you go over that, then there's an overage on a per number basis per month. Excuse me. Then down here, I have a breakdown. So I have assigned numbers and spare numbers, right? Assigned number means I'm using it, right? Someone can call that number and expect to speak to someone or leave a voicemail, be joining a conference or sending a fax, right? Spare number counts towards my allotment. I'm just not using it right now, right? That could be I'm about to, let's say I'm based in San Jose, California, and I'm about to open a new storefront in Reno, Nevada. So I grabbed a Reno phone number, but I'm not using it yet because that store isn't open and there's no one there yet to receive calls there. Right? Or I had a promotion running, that promotion's over, I just took the number out of service, so I'm not getting calls about something that's no longer relevant. Then down here, I have USDID and US toll-free. US toll-free is US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888 number, all the way down to 833 currently. USDID just means a US local number, right? So number in San Jose, California, number in Reno, Nevada, both count as USDID. You can have an international phone number if you wish. You'd actually need to email our porting team, and that's porting at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in having a phone number in. They will then let you know if that is available and if there's any additional requirements. Conference bridges, I have 8. That means I have enabled the conference feature on 8 of my users, right? So I have 8 people who moderate or host a conference. I'm going to go over here towards the top right. This main number box, I have 5 phone numbers here. These 5 phone numbers all act the same way, right? They're all going to the same location in my system. And in this case, they're all playing the same main greeting. Then I have my conference room number. You can have multiple conference numbers if you want, but they're all going to the same set of conference rooms. This is the phone number all my staff, all my customers, all my vendors would dial if they're joining a conference. The fax box number, you can only have the one main fax box number, and this is your inbound fax number, and allows you to configure your fax box to also allow for outbound faxing. The company directories, you have 2 download links here. The first is a CSV file. Basically, you download it in a CSV format. This has a list of all your staff members, right, with their names, their extension numbers, and their devices. The other one here says soft phone. This is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. So if you're using our soft phone app on a Mac or Windows PC, you would download this file and then upload it to our soft phone app on your computer. And this will allow you to see the status of the other VirtualPBX soft phones on your account. So if this is the only device you use on your account, then you effectively have the ability to see their presence or their status, right? If they're on a call or not. VirtualPBX Store, if you click on this link, it's going to open up a new tab and take you to store.virtualpbx.com, where you can order things like a VoIP phone or a router, etc. And then you have the account realm, right, which is unique to each account. This is used in a couple things. The first thing it's used for is for a third-party soft phone. Right? In order to make use of a third-party soft phone application, you need 3 pieces of information, and the account realm is one of those pieces of information. The other thing it's used for is for outbound faxing. So to send a fax out on Dash, you actually don't need to log into your Dash account. You just need to know the proper method, for lack of a better term. Basically, you create an email from the email address that's used for your user on our account here. So create an email like you normally do. In the to field, you put the plus sign, the number 1, area code and phone number you're faxing to, and then you include the account realm. Then you just need to attach a PDF or a TIFF file, and then the system will send it out. Up here toward the top in this blue band, right, where it says Sandbox Training, I have caller ID. If I click on that, it's going to expand it out. And this is your company caller ID, or the default that your system uses for your outbound caller ID. So this pull down here, which unfortunately doesn't show properly on my streaming software, will let you select any of your main numbers, and that becomes your default phone number, right? So your VoIP phones will use this phone number by default when they make an outbound call as their outbound caller ID. It also becomes a default for a couple other features. You then have the option to enter your company caller ID name, excuse me. In this box here to the right, you can enter up to 15 characters. That includes spaces or special characters that we include as part of your outbound caller ID. Again, this is completely optional, and I'll get into some more details in this in just a second. Then down here, under the company emergency information, the system wants a US or Canadian address, and then you would click on Save Changes. Now, once you click on Save Changes, if you included information in the company caller ID name field, this information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support this feature. It takes them about 3 business days to update their databases. sometimes a little faster. Just depends. Now, for the company call ID name, so when you make an outbound call from your VoIP phones, right, we transmit this information along with the phone number. When your call goes out, it can go through several carriers before it reaches the destination phone number. If one of those carriers does not support CNAME, then your CNAME information does not reach your destination. Even if all that information reaches to the destination, right, that carrier that houses that destination phone number, they decide what goes through. So for first option is, right, they see the phone number and they see the CNAME information we're transmitting. They say, oh, that's great. And they just pass it on through to the device on their network. Right? Or they see that information and say, no, we don't like your information. They get the phone number, they look up their own database, and they put that information with the phone number and transmit it to the phone number on their network, right, or the device on their network. Or they, get the information, they don't even bother looking at the name. They just send the number through only. That last scenario is typically what your cell phone companies do, right? Many cell phone carriers just do not participate in CNAME, and several of them want to charge their subscribers an additional monthly fee in order to have that as a feature on their cell phones. So if you're going to make test calls from your VoIP phones to, say, your cell phone, it's very possible your company call ID name information will not show up. And that would also apply to any customers you call. All right, next up we have hold music. This dash allows you to upload your own media files. It will play back .wav and .mp3 files. You want to make sure that they're less than 1 megabyte. And in terms of that file size, it can be helpful to record in mono, not in stereo. Right? That gives you more data, essentially. Now, this pull down, you can select any media files that are already on the account, or you would just click upload here, click on the browse button to find an MP3 or .wav file on your computer, click the up arrow icon, and then click on save changes after it's done uploading. Now, ours is part of main number, and I'm going to get to main number after I talk about two other topics. So of those topics, let's go down to users. Users will show all the people that are on your account. These are people who make and receive calls. Once it loads, here we go. Now, the people with the little gray person icon, these are your standard users. They have very limited access. Right? People with the blue suit icon, these are your system admins. They're doing everything that we can talk about here on this video. Up here at the top, you can click Add User. And you essentially fill out the form, right? So first name, right? Last name. The big one here, email address used for login. This needs to be unique for each user, right? So you can't reuse an email address for multiple staff members. This is how the system communicates to the user, right? So like password reset emails or voicemail notifications would all go via email from the email address that this system has for the user. Password, this is where you create the password for the user. They can always change that later on their own. And then the main extension number. You can enter in whatever you want. This system started off with extension 1000, so that's why it's suggesting 1017 here. If you just signed up with us, right, and this is your first time logging in, you want to make sure you assign yourself an extension number so that way you can enable voicemail. Right, but this is for additional users, so they already have an extension number. And then the system will here, you have a check mark here where the system will automatically create a voicemail box for the user. And that's voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. Basically, if you added the user, added a VoIP phone, they can pick up their VoIP phone and dial star 98 on their phone and be able to like create their voicemail box PIN number as well as a voicemail box greeting. Here's your option to include them in the user directory. You can always change that later if you want to. Here's an option to send emails to an alternate address. So if you want the system to send those password resets or voicemail notifications to an email other than the one that is used for login, you would then put a check mark here and then enter that different email address in this box. And then lastly, you have the option here to send credentials to the user. I typically put a check mark here, so that way my new staff member gets a welcome email welcoming them to the Dash account, as well as giving them their Dash login information. Right, you click on create user if you only need to add one person. If you need to add multiple, then you click on create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name here. Right, so you can change their name if you need to. Here is where you can change their credentials. Right, if you click on that, opens a new box. So you can change the email address, you can change their password. You also have the option here to send them the password reset email. Right, so if you have a person who just does not understand the kind of passwords you create for them, this is like here, create it, reset it yourself. And then you would click on Save Changes. Here you can change the voicemail box PIN number. Pretty straightforward. Here's your option to send to an alternate address. Here's the option to be in the user directory or not. Over here, this pull down allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. This little clock icon, this allows you to change the time zone for the user, right? So that way their voicemail timestamps, for instance, have the correct time for their location. Typically easier, like in the United States, usually we say look up New York, Chicago, Denver, or Los Angeles. A little flag icon here, this allows you to change the web page display language. English, French, German, or Russian are the options. You have ringing timeout. Now, the default for ringing timeout is 20 seconds. Typically, plenty of time to send a call to a landline or a VoIP phone. If a person is only having a cell phone device, then you would want to increase this to at least 30 seconds. Now, in this instance, Aaron has a user feature enabled called Follow Me enabled, and that's why it's grayed out here. You have the extension box, so you can have multiple extensions to a user if you want to. Right, you would just click on Add an extension, give it a new extension number, click on Save Changes. Users can have their own phone numbers, right? So this is a phone number that rings directly to the user. They don't hear any kind of greeting message or anything, just goes boom, starts ringing their phones. Excuse me. So here you have the option to add from spare or buy new, right? So add from spare means you're reusing a phone number, right? So these are the phone numbers that I'm not currently using. Maybe I was in the past. I would click on that box here and then click on add selected. And then I had two phone numbers here. And then click on save changes. By numbers, this means you're adding a new number. You have local or toll free. Toll free, 800 number, right? So you choose the toll free prefix, click on search. The system will give you a list of phone numbers. And you can click add on any of them that you like. Right, you can add multiple in any location if you want to. You would click on by numbers. Now, it's important that you click on by numbers because just adding a number to the cart doesn't reserve it for you. It doesn't do anything, really. It's just saying, hey, let us know when you're done, right? When you click by numbers, that's when you're actually adding it to the account, or in this case, directly to Aaron. Now I can decide, oh, I didn't really want to do that. I can unassign it. Now, when I unassign it, I haven't deleted the number, right? I've just put it into a spare number status. Let's go back here to by numbers. If for local numbers, you need to know the area code that you want to use a phone number in or get a phone number from. So if you do 310, right, you're going to get this message. This just means that area code is exhausted. And this can happen on the toll-free prefixes as well, right? Just for a random bit of knowledge, an area code has over 7,700,000 phone numbers available in it. Some of those are basically, the reason it's not the full like 8 million or whatever is because there's some numbers reserved for particular purposes. So there is a limit, right? It's just the nature of things. So in this case, you would want to, I would say, use Google or whatever your search engine you want and do a search for area code 310 overlay. An overlay means, you know, 2 or more area codes are used in a particular geographic area, right? They have this typically they have the same geographic boundaries. In this case, that would tell me that area code 424 is the overlay for 310. But same process, right? You click add, and then you want to make sure you click by numbers to add the number fully, right? If I left it in this cart, and let's say I got pulled into a meeting, I come back an hour later, it's possible when I click by number, I get an error because someone else happened to take that number while I was in that meeting. Right. So here we got the device box for the user, right? So this shows their current devices. You can add new devices to them. The first one here is SIP phone. This is that physical hardware, right? So you choose the manufacturer you're working with. Some of them have a lot of models, some not as many. But you find the make and model of the phone you're going to work with. Down here, you give it a name. All right, I usually say like in this case, like I would say Aaron's phone or location, right? Like warehouse phone, that sort of thing. Then you need the MAC address. This is unique to each device. Typically a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, you can also find the MAC address typically under its status settings or basic settings. And you enter that information here. You click on create device. Now, once the device is created, actually, let's go to an actual physical hardware phone here. Let's go, Bob has one. All right, so it's been added, right? You see the information here. You want to go to advanced miscellaneous. And then where it says allow reprovision, you click unlock, save changes, and then save changes here. And now that phone is ready to be auto provisioned. At that point, you need to log into the phone's web user interface, right? The web UI. Typically, that means you get the phone's IP address. You put that IP address on the address bar of your browser. The computer and the phone should be on the same network to be able to do this. You log into the phone, and then you need to tell the phone or give the phone a URL, right? To basically go here and grab your config file. Now, each manufacturer has a slightly different process and slightly different syntax for that URL. So for the specifics of that, right, click on the little graduation cap icon here to go to the support pages and do a search for auto provisioning. This will get you to the document that has the screenshots for these various manufacturers and the syntax for that URL. Once the phone goes through the process, it's going to reboot a couple times. This will take several minutes. It's, you know, probably worthwhile to go get coffee while it's happening. When it's done, it should show up as a green device here on your dashboard, and that means you can make and receive calls from it. Next up, we have cell phone. And that's like this demo device here. So I'm just going to click on this right here. So you give it a name, and then you put in the number. And it's this format here. That's +1 area code and phone number. No spaces, no dashes, no parentheses. Just +1 area code and number. And then you would click on Save Changes. Now I'm going to click on Advanced Options here. This is the default setup for a cell phone or a landline. Right, so as I mentioned at the top or towards the beginning, right, when a call comes to this device, right, when Aaron picks up on his cell phone, he can't transfer that call. Right, he has to basically deal with it or tell the other person that they have to call back, right, to get to a different, whatever, you know, different department they need to speak to. Now, when the call is offered to Aaron on his cell phone, right? His cell phone rings. When he picks up, he's going to hear a message saying, "This is a forwarded call. Please press 1." When he presses 1, he's telling the system, yes, he's there, and yes, he wants to take the call, right? The call is then connected. He can speak to the customer. This is great if it's actually Aaron that we're sending the call to. But let's say, for instance, you've contracted out with another company to handle your calls for after hours, right? So it's an automated answering service. So they give you a phone number saying, hey, just send calls to this number and we'll handle your calls. 99% of those are automated. There's not an actual person there immediately picking up. So in that instance, you want to click here where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail. You want to put a check mark here, click on save changes, and then save changes down here at the device box. So now when we offer a call to this phone number, we don't play that message about this is a forwarded call or requiring the having to press 1, right? Instead, we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call. Right, so then the automated answering service takes over. Likewise, if this is actually going to Aaron's personal cell phone, if his cell phone voicemail picks up, that's still a pickup tone. So that means the inbound caller ends up on Aaron's personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people do want that. Some people definitely do not. The other thing that sometimes comes up is this one here, keep original caller ID. So customer Mary calling in, rings to Aaron's phone. On his cell phone, he sees customer Mary's phone number. He doesn't recognize it. He's been getting hammered by robo-dialers about extending his auto warranty or what have you. So he lets the call go to voicemail. Maybe he's able to reach back out and connect with customer Mary, maybe not. You can uncheck this. So now, instead of customer Mary's phone number showing up, the main company number shows up on his cell phone. And what do we mean by the main company number? This one here, right? This 408 number that I have selected, this is the phone number that would show up on Aaron's cell phone. Hopefully, right, your staff would recognize the main company and phone number and say, oh, this is a work call. This is worthwhile for me to take. All right. Next up is soft phone. Now, whenever you're adding a soft phone or web phone, you're going to get this message here. All right. It's basically saying, hey, there's such thing as wireless VoIP technology. So for E911 purposes, that might have been an extra one, you want to make sure you're at the right address that before dialing 911 from your VoIP device. So here, the system will always start you off as adding a third-party soft phone. Right? So that means you're using someone else's application, not ours. If you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone application, that's great. Down here, below where it says View Configuration Information, there's a little toggle. It says Use Third-Party Application. You click on that, it'll flip it, and now it says Use VirtualPBX Application. You give it a name, then you click on Create Device, and then you click on Save Changes. When you click on Save Changes, the user gets an email, right? It's gonna, say it. I think the title is Your VirtualPBX Soft Phone is Ready. In the body of the email, it will have their username and password for the soft phone. Right? So the soft phone login information different from your dash login information, right? So you have at least, in this case, you would have at least 2 logins, one for your website, one for the soft phone. Adding a web phone, just get that same message. You just give it a name, click on Create Device, click on Save Changes. The web phone uses your dash user login information, right? So same email address, same password, same account name. So in that regard, it's easier, but it's more limited because you can only use it on a computer. All right, the soft phone has an app on for Android and iOS as well as for a computer. All right, user features. Caller ID number, this only works for a user that has their own phone number, right? So you assign them a number under that phone number's box for them. And when you turn it on, you select a phone number on the user, click on Save Changes. What this does is when, I believe I'm on Ariel here, when Ariel makes an outbound call from his VoIP phone, his outbound caller ID is this 209 phone number instead of the 408 number that I have set up under main number on the dashboard page, right? So basically, you know, he's in wherever area code 209 is, so he wants to make it look like his calls are local. Virtual text application, this is relatively new. This allows for texting via the virtual text app or website. So you click to turn it on, right, to enable it, and then you select the virtual phone number on the account. Now, this phone number is either a phone number assigned directly to the user, it could be one of your main numbers, it could be one of your auto attendant numbers. And then you click on Save Changes. They will get an email welcoming them to virtual text. It will have their own login. So at this point, Ariel here would have, 3 sets of logins for us, right? He would have the one login to log into dash.virtualpbx.com. He'd have a second login, right, username and password for his softphone app, and then a third one to make use of virtual text. Now, virtual text has its own app that you can download under the Android or iOS app stores, as well as a website. You can go to virtualtext.app on your browser window and log in that way. This allows you to text your customers. The main feature of virtual text is being able to share numbers, right? So you can share your main number among your staff, so that way you have multiple people who can text with your customers. Now, this feature may not show up immediately on your account when you first sign up. You actually have to work with our account services team in order to have the feature enabled. There's also now SMS registration required, which we'll get to towards the end. We do have, I know last week there was an SMS webinar, and that should be recorded on our YouTube channel. I don't know if they're having that every week, but that definitely was recorded last week. Voicemail box. So this is basically default settings. Enabled voicemails to email is turned on, and what that means is when a voicemail is left, we send you an email, and we attach an MP3 file to that email. Now, the body of the email will have the date, the time, phone numbers involved, and then there'll be an MP3 attachment. Transcription, I believe, is still a plan-specific feature. Basically, what that is, if you turn it on, the system listens to the voicemail message and then tries to type it out in the body of the email to the best of its ability. Right, so if people are not speaking to their microphone, or their microphone picks up a lot of background noise, right, that's going to impact the quality of that transcription. Voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and cannot accept any more. By default, your staff members have 3 ways to check their messages. Right, that first is the email message that they get. That allows them to listen to the messages, right? But they don't have a way to delete it from the email. However, they can call in, right? So from their VoIP phone, they can simply pick up their VoIP phone, dial *98. That logs them directly into their VoIP voicemail box, and they can listen to the messages. They'll have the option to delete. Let's say they're on the road, right? So they're not using the VirtualPBX softphone app. If you have a phone number that rings to the auto attendant, right, and virtual receptionist, then they can dial in from their cell phone. When they hear the main greeting, they can hit *97. Then the system will ask them for the voicemail box number and then their PIN, right? So then they can listen to the voicemails over the phone and delete them that way. And then lastly, they can use the user portal, right? So log into dash.virtualpbx.com. A standard user will be defaulted to their user portal page and specifically their voicemail tab. So they can listen to their voicemails on the web page and delete them there as well. Right, if that's not something people want to do, right, they just want the email message, then you can click on this option here, which will delete the voicemails from the voicemail box after the system has sent the email out, right? So voicemails left, system sends an email to the user, and then the system deletes that voicemail from the box, so that way the voicemail box does not become full. And then you would click on Save Changes. Follow Me is a feature for users with multiple devices. This allows you to control how those devices are rung. Oh, he doesn't actually have devices. Let's go to Bob. So here you see the setup. Now, when it's first enabled, it actually looks like this. Right? All the devices are set to do not ring. Basically, the system wants to know which devices are you going to make use of. So you would uncheck a box, and it starts off like this. It says, how long do you want to ring? You click and drag this bar, and you can set up the ring duration. Now this will remember the previous setup. Now up here along the top, these are timestamps. You can edit this. Right, so I can take it down to 60 seconds if I want to, and I click enter. I can also click distribute. So now it equalizes out over time. I can click and drag, right? Change the order, click distribute again, right? But these are still adjustable, right? So I can still do something like that. And then you click on Save Changes to make sure your changes are saved. Fax box. You can choose to have your users have their own fax box. You would just click Enable. And then you need to choose, are you using a spare number, buying a new number, or you can just assign a new extension number. I recommend making use of a phone number, as that gives your staff members the most versatility, meaning they can send and receive faxes. If you select just an extension number, then the user can only ever receive faxes. They're not going to be able to send faxes out. That's because when the system, when you send a fax out, right, you have that email, the system, it looks at the to field, the from field, and the attachments. Well, when it looks at the from field, it says, oh, it's this email address. They have their own fax box. It grabs the parameters of that fax box, in this case, it says it just has an extension number. It uses that extension numbers as the outbound caller ID, which will cause the fax to fail because it's not a phone number. So that's why I say use a phone number. But then you click on Save Changes, and then the user will have their own fax box. Conference Bridge, you click to enable. The main thing you need to do is enter in a PIN number for the user, and then click on Save Changes. The user can change their fax box PIN numbers on their user portal, so it's not set in stone. Where it says enable video conferencing, right? This is for internal use, right? So if you have it on, that means everyone at your company can make use of the video conference when they join that conference, right? So they can have video and share video. But anyone outside of your organization, when they call in, will not be able to make use of it. Call forwarding, you have off, on, or failover mode. Your staff can turn call forwarding off or on their own. They can do that via the user portal. They can also do that via their VoIP phones, use what's called a feature code. Failover mode is something you as an admin would have to set up. And what that is you choose a desk phone or mobile phone. In this field here, you put the +1 area code and phone number, right? No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. And what failover mode means is if their VoIP phone goes unregistered, right? They lose internet connection, for example, and a call comes into the user at that particular time, the system will automatically forward the call to the phone number you designated, right? So that way you're not losing the call, right? Not going to voicemail, or at least not automatically going to voicemail. Customize call recording, when you first enable it, it looks like this. And basically, you have to tell the system what kind of calls are you going to record. So inbound internal, you know, coworker Bob called Ariel, right? You can choose to record that or not, right? Inbound external, customer Mary called, right? Outbound internal, that means Aaron here called coworker Bob back. You can leave that off if you wanted to, right? And then outbound external means calling customer Mary back, right? So typically we see something like this or all four. Now, every account you have at least some amount of data storage as part of your monthly plan price. You may, if you just signed up, check on the pricing page, and that will tell you how much storage you have and what the overage is. I believe our pricing's recently changed, so like if you signed up a month ago, for example, you probably want to double check with our account services team so they can verify. If you have heavy call volume and you're recording every call, you definitely want to talk to our account services team about AWS integration. Basically, that means if you have an AWS account, you can link it with your Dash account and store your call recordings on AWS because it's going to be cheaper with them at high volumes. Excuse me. Music on hold, you can choose to have your users have their own hold music if you want to. Again, .wave, .mp3, typically recorded in mono, right? But you find the file on your computer, or click upload, then click browse, then click the up arrow icon. This pull down will show any of the media files you already have on your account. So you can reuse a file, for instance. Do not disturb. If you turn it on, click save changes. That means this user is not accepting calls. Right, so calls to them would go to their voicemail. The main thing to be careful of is if they're part of groups or queues, that you want to make sure they're not causing, especially in a group, that they're not causing a gap in the middle of the group. Hot desking is a VoIP phone feature. When you enable it, you create a hot desk ID. Now, if you're using 4-digit extension numbers, it's just easy to use their extension number as their hot desk ID. You click on Save Changes. So this is for a shared office environment or hybrid scheduling. So Aaron, actually, I think I'm on Bob, but whatever. Aaron comes into the office on Tuesday. He sits down at desk number 2. He picks up the VoIP phone there. He dials *11, right? That turns on hot desking on his phone that he's sitting at. And the system will tell him that calls will now be sent to this device. So the rest of the workday, right? Phone calls that want to reach Aaron ring to him at the phone he's sitting at. End of his day, he picks up the phone again, hits *12 to turn off hot desking. Next time he comes in the office, let's say it's Friday, Angela's sitting at desk number 2. He says good morning, and he sits down at desk number 5, picks the phone, *11, enters hot desk ID again. Calls are now coming to him at that phone. Oops. All right, and let's go to groups because that's related. So groups are departments, right? This is where you want a group of people to be able to answer calls, typically about a similar topic. Up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You give it a name, and you give it an extension number. And then you click and drag the staff members that you want to be in the group. And then you click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on its name. Right, so you can always change the name. And then you have the group call attempts. This is how many times the system will offer a call to the group members. You got little arrows here to the far right, so you can increase or decrease it. Right, here's your option to delete a group if you no longer need it, and then save changes if you made any changes. Next up, you've got the members box. shows my staff members and how I'm offering calls to them. So in this case, I have what's called blast ringing or ring all. Right, so I'm ringing it to all of them at the same time for the same amount of time. This is advantageous for a relatively busy group, right? Because call comes in, whoever picks up first gets the call. So let's say Bob takes that first call, second call comes in. Again, all the phones ring, including Bob, right? So since he's on a call, right, he might hear a call waiting beep if he has that enabled. Otherwise, he won't hear anything. But the other staff members are alerted because their phones ring. Let's say Michael picks up the call, right? So now Michael and Bob are on calls. Third call comes in. Again, everyone's phones ring. Then Aaron picks up, right? So that way your inbound caller doesn't have to wait on hold, right? If I click distribute up here, right, if I have it ring in order every time, the system doesn't skip anyone just because they're on a call when a call comes into the group. So call comes into Bob, Bob picks up, right? He's helping to call that person. Second call comes in while Bob's still on the phone. He's still offered the call for 24 seconds before the system will offer the call to Aaron. Right. So if it's not a super busy group, this works fine, right? Because then you have your primary, secondary, whatever. But for very busy groups or very busy days, right, this could be problematic for your inbound callers. Now, these are just like under the user feature follow me, right? You can adjust the ring times, right? So you can have more overlap so people aren't waiting on hold as long, right? You can change the order and then click distribute if you want to. So this is the timestamp, so you can adjust the total ring time. And then you would click on save changes, right? If you click remove, that just removes them from the group, right? Down here, you can add additional users. And then when you add them, right, it adds them at the beginning, right? So I'd have to click distribute again to equalize out over time. Any changes you make, click on save changes. Right? So when you created the group, you had to create give an extension number. So you can add additional extension numbers if you want to. And you can unassign the extension. So right, if you want to change the extension number, click add extension and enter the new extension number. Click on save changes. Click on the extension box again and then unassign the original one. Groups can have their own phone numbers if you want them to, right? Add from spare, buy new, same process as before. Oh, I forgot to mention this before, the little gear icon here. This allows you to adjust the caller ID, right? So you can put CNAME for this phone number, as well as turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAME. E911, each phone number on your account can have its own E911 information. And this allows you to assign the particular phone numbers to your VoIP phones for the purposes of E911, right? So that way, if you have staff working in multiple places, you can make sure for E911, they have an address that's appropriate for their location. Prepend is a VoIP phone feature, but basically you can adjust the caller ID that shows, or the display. You can add text in front of the phone number of the inbound caller, which kind of dovetails into group features here. So ring back. So call comes in, offered to your group members. Their phones start to ring. That ringing sound is piped back to your inbound caller, right? Ring back. That's a little boring. So you may enable the ring back feature. This allows you to upload a media file, right? .wav.mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. And that will play instead of the ringing sound. A 1 megabyte MP3 is roughly 5 minutes. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. Next action, if you turn this on, if no one picks up, what do you want the system to do with the call? You have a little pull down here. You can send it to another group. You can send it to a user. You can send it to a voicemail box. You can send it back to your main menu. You can send it to a call queue, etc. And then you would click on Save Changes. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means your users can make use of call forwarding to send calls to, say, like their cell phone. Right. So if you have users like with multiple devices, you probably don't need allow call forward enabled, depending on their devices. But we see a lot of people with, say, a white phone and a cell phone. You don't need to make use of call forwarding in that example. Caller ID prepend, if you enable this, you can choose either to add additional text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' white phones. You want to use one of these. You don't want to use both because that can be a little bit confusing. I usually recommend making use of text. The number can sometimes throw off a VoIP phone when you're trying to call back the number that called into you. Now, a couple things to keep in mind about groups. If a user has multiple devices and a call from the group rings all of their devices, it will ignore the follow me feature on the user. Right, so call comes into Bob, he's got 3 devices, they ring all at the same time. It's not going to ring in order or skip a phone or anything. It's going to ring all of them. So it's a way for him to know that, oh, this is a group call versus a call coming into his extension. Your staff members don't have a lot of control about what they do in the group, right? They have the D&D toggle at best, which means they're not getting any calls, but they can't like bark themselves away or log out of a group unless they're an admin, in which case they come in here and remove themselves. All right, let's go to main number. The main number page sometimes takes a little bit to load, but up at top here, you have your main company numbers. This shows all your main numbers. Down here, you can add from spare or by new, just like we saw under users and add groups. All right, the little gear icon, so you can adjust caller ID, E911, or prepend. Unassign if you want to remove a number from being a main number. Then you have your office hours strategy. You have 24-hour open office or custom office hours. If you choose custom office hours, then for each day of the week that you're open, put a check mark in front of that day, and then set your open hours in 24-hour or military time. So you see here I'm open 8:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. Office holidays, if you're closed for holidays, put a check mark here. And then over here towards the right, it says add holiday. You have your option here for single day, date, range, or advanced. Each one of those creates a new row. And then you give it a name, right? So like I have here for Memorial Day, you choose the month and the date, save changes, right? If I want to remove one, I just click on the little trash icon. All right, date range. It's like I have here for Christmas holiday, getting a start date, end date, and then save changes. And then advanced Thanksgiving, again, name, month. This pull down is the first, you have options 1st through 5th as well as last, and then the day of the week, save changes. There's no year indicator. So for date ranges, as a precaution, we recommend against having a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Hasn't posed a problem in quite a long time, but at one point it did. So then we have incoming call handling. So for my main numbers, during my open hours, during my after hours, and during my holidays, right? This will determine how I'm handling those calls. Now, these first 3 options down here, where it says like call coming to virtual receptionist, then the directory, and then this last one here, those 3 will always show up. The last one over here to the far right only shows up under a couple circumstances. That's this if you have multiple auto attendants on your account, which is a plan specific feature, and you made one of those attendants available in main menu, this would show up. If you worked with our services team and they made a custom call flow for you, that would also be an instance where that 4th one would show up. Anyway, so calls come in during my open hours. In this case, I'm going to my virtual receptionist. This is a link. and opens up this big window here. So on the left, I have my main menu. This is where I can set up menu options like 0 through 9, star key, and the default action. Right? Most of those are things people can press on their phone to navigate through my phone system. I click on add route. That gives me a new row. This pull down, unfortunately, doesn't show, but again, 0 through 9, star key, as well as the default action. And then the second pull down is where you want it to go. Now, part of the reason why I started off with the groups and users is you need to add these people here in order for them to show up as an option, right? If you came into main number, but you hadn't added all your users and groups, you can't add them as an option, right? But here you have all your users, your call queues if you make use of them, your ring groups, any devices you've added, voicemail boxes, etc. Then on the right, your greeting options. Text to speech. You type in what you want it to say, you click update, save changes. This is a computerized or robotic voice. I typically recommend this for you when you're just starting out, whether that's you're just starting out with us or you've never used a PBX system before or you're a startup business, right? All three of those, not a bad idea to start with text-to-speech. They're free. Downside, this text-to-speech greeting is limited to 250 characters, not words, characters. Additionally, it doesn't allow you to name the file. It names it for you. So in this case, it would call it my main open hours menu TTS. Right, so if I type this in, I click update, save changes, it calls it main open hours menu TTS. Let's say I didn't like it or I forgot a menu option, right? And so then I edit it, right? I type in something else. So right. So now when I click update, I'm going to have two files called main open hours menu TTS. Now, if I only have those two, that's not that huge a deal. But from any pull down I have for like my voicemail boxes or further down under choose from an existing recording, I'm not going to be able to tell between those two right off the bat. So if you're going to make use of text-to-speech greetings, after you create one, over here under greetings, you would want to find that file and then you would click the wrench icon to edit it, and then you can change the name, right? So that way it makes it easier for you to find. Upload your own file, choose the file on your computer, right? mp3.wav recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. And then click update, save changes. Choose from existing recordings. Again, this is a pull down. It shows all your media files. Hold music, voicemail greetings, main greetings, all will show up here with just their name. You can record over the phone. Now, it says pick up a phone registered on this account. What that means is pick up a VoIP phone on the account. If you just signed up with us and you call your main number, and you assign your main number to your virtual, your main number, you're going to hear a message saying that the greeting for this menu has not been recorded yet, and that will then prompt you for the PIN number. You enter that PIN number, and then it will walk you through recording a greeting over the phone. It names the file for you. Typically, it's like your account number .recording, something like that. Now, if you already have a recording in place, right? Let's say you started off with text-to-speech, and then you're like, oh, I don't like the sound of that, or your customer said, hey, that was kind of weird sounding. So you can still call in, right? You'll hear that text-to-speech greeting. You can still enter the PIN number, right? The system will recognize it and then walk you through recording it over the phone. When you have an existing recording in place and you do that, right, you're just overwriting the data, right? Then file name will stay the same. So if I called in right now, I would have a main menu open TTS file that's actually recording, not a text-to-speech. Now, if you want to use a phone other than a VoIP phone, right? Let's say like you signed up with us, you ordered some Yealing phones, they haven't been delivered yet, but you want to record the greeting over the phone right now, and you only have a cell phone or landline, then what you would want to do is under settings, where it says allow outside recording, make sure this is on, right? Typically by default, it's off, right? As a security feature, but you turn it on, this will allow someone to dial in from a cell phone or landline and record it over the phone, right? You still need the PIN number, right? Once you're done with that, though, we do recommend you turn this back to off, so that way a random person can't, figure out the PIN number and then change your main greeting on you. Right. Professional recording services, when you click order, this will open up a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings, which is a separate company. They have about 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have their own packages. They deliver to you via email. And then you would simply upload your own file. All right, settings. Number of retries on missed dial. This is how many times the inbound caller can make a mistake. Typically, anywhere from 1 to 2 is what most people use. Right? Basically, call comes in and they press a menu option. If it's invalid, let's say they called in press number 9, system would play the main greeting again, right? So now they're on their first retry. They press 8, still an invalid entry. Play the greeting a third time, and hopefully they press the right thing. But let's say they press 5. Well, that's their last attempt. Now, on that last attempt, if there's a default action, right, the system would route the call to that default action. If there's not, then the system would end the call, right? It would say, we did not recognize your entry, goodbye. Dialing timeout, this is how much time the system listens for additional button presses, right? So that inbound caller, right, pressed 5. The system waits 5 seconds, says, oh, they meant 5, but there's no menu option 5. There's no extension number 5. Goes to the next retry. All right, we already covered allow outside recording. Allow dialing extensions, by default, this is on, and that just means if the person calling in enters a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call to that extension number. All right, if I turn that off, that means the inbound caller can only press these menu options. Anything else is an invalid entry. And then we have to suppress the playing of invalid entry. So if I don't want that message saying we did not recognize your entry, goodbye, to play, right? I don't want that to play. I turn this on, right? It suppresses that message. Any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or your settings, you click Save here. You're taking back to your incoming call handling. Click Save Changes here. You're clicking Save twice. All right, second option is what's referred to as the live operator answer option. The idea here is it gives you the chance to offer the call to someone in order to pick up the call first. And if that person is not able to, or those people, then the call goes to the virtual receptionist. So like I could do this for during my day open hours. I have this pull down here, right? I can select the users, right? So a specific person. Call queues, which would be a group of people. My ring groups, right? So departments, right? Several people. Devices, so I can have a specific phone rung. And so then some of the others don't make sense. So let's see, for instance, here, let's go back down to, right? So I can ring it to my front desk group, right? That's like 5 people. It's offered the call to. If they don't pick up, then it goes to my virtual receptionist. Now this is still my open hours, so it has these options and the same greeting. Right? If I go to my after hours, virtual receptionist, different menu options, and likely a different greeting. Holidays, or this third option. So this first pull down, again, you can choose where you're offering it to, right? Users, groups, call queues if you have them. Users, you can send it to a specific device. You can also select a media file, right? Like this would be, in this case, holidays, right? You can have a holiday message play. And then this other option here is a voicemail box. So like I can do it to that voicemail box. Now, the additional option at the very end here is just skip the voicemail, where we're not bothering trying to ring anything or play a message. We're just saying, hey, send it to the voicemail box, because the voicemail box has a greeting of its own. And then you can record that message. Conference number, you can have multiple conference room numbers if you want, right? You can add from spare, buy new. You have the option here to have a custom text-to-speech greeting. Right? You click enable, type in what you wanted to say, click on save. If I leave this disabled and I call my conference room number, the system still plays a message, right? It says welcome to the conference, and then asks the person to enter their conference room number and then their PIN number. The main fax box number, you can only have the one number, right? That's why I don't have the option to add. And then edit fax box. So here, inbound fax notification, right? This means you enter an email address here, and that email address gets an email every time an inbound fax comes through. Now, if someone dials your fax box number and hangs up, this person still gets an email saying there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Now, the body of the email has the date, the time, and phone numbers involved, and sometimes the caller ID will say wireless number. That will let you know that was a failed, it was a wrong number, right? Otherwise, you'd want to double check, like especially if you recognize the number you're supposed to get a fax from, you'd want to contact that person and find out what happened. Email permissions, this is where you would set up outbound faxing. This is designed to put in your company email domain. Right? So everyone at your company has an email address that ends at @abccleaners.com. Right? You would put the @abccleaners.com here, click on Save Changes. That means everyone at your company can send a fax out through your Dash account, even if they're not a user on your Dash account. Right? So like, you have an intern named Dean, and you're like, well, you don't need to be a user on the account, but you can send faxes out, and this is how you do it. Right, and then click on Save Changes. Now, auto attendance, this is a plan-specific feature. Basically means it's on some plans and not others. Used for a couple of features. One, it's used for submenuing, right? One for English, two for Spanish, sort of thing. So that way you would have an English greeting and a Spanish greeting, and then the menu options would go to people who speak of the appropriate language. Another reason it's used is for multiple businesses that you want on the same account, right? So makes it easier for billing, right? You don't have an account for each account or for each business. Those separate businesses would have their own phone numbers and their own main greetings, but you can have the same staff member answer calls for them. So up here at the top, you would click on Add Attendant, right? Click on the name, and then click on the extension number, or enter an extension number, excuse me. Click on Create Attendant. Now, by default, when you create a new attendant, it shows up like this. And you click on the name, unavailable in main menu, meaning it starts off as a standalone attendant. So if I want to make it a submenu option, I would click here to flip it to say available in main menu. Right? Like I would go down to Spanish, for example. It's available in main menu. When you do this, this makes it available as a menu option or as a group next action option, etc. Auto attendants can have their own phone numbers, and they can have multiple. Right? You can add from spare and buy new. The extension number, it's unlikely your customers would ever know these extension numbers, but this is useful for your staff to transfer calls to the appropriate business. Or like, if like I don't speak Spanish, and if a caller came into me is rattling off what I can understand as Spanish or recognize as Spanish, but I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. I could transfer them to my Spanish auto attendant on the system, and then hopefully they can get help from one of my Spanish speaking colleagues versus trying to find one of my Spanish speaking colleagues directly. Hey, can you help this guy? I don't know what they want. Now, the little wrench icon here under settings takes a little bit to load sometimes. Here you have open hours, after hours, and holidays, right? This matches what we set up under your main number, right? So these secondary auto attendants follow the times setup that you set up under the main number. But they all only have the option to go to the virtual receptionist, where again, you set up menu options and greeting file. You click save and then save changes. Right. The devices tab shows the devices on your account, red, unregistered. So like a web phone or a soft phone, that could be they're not logged into it. Right. Physical phone, like down here, this W690, could be it's not plugged in, right? Or they could have an internet issue or just a router network issue of some sort. These black devices right here, that means I've turned them off, right? That under this enable column, right? These are the two devices that are quote unregistered on the dashboard page. You can add devices up here, right? So phone, cell phone, etc. If you choose soft phone on this page, right, you don't have that toggle, right? So you can only add a third-party soft phone here on the devices page. You cannot add a VirtualPBX soft phone here. For physical phones, if you click on the little wrench icon here, under advanced audio, you want to make sure G711A and G711U are enabled. This would even apply to a soft phone you're using to make use of a hardware device. External caller ID, you could choose a phone number on your account to change this device's outbound caller ID. Each VoIP phone, you can choose a different phone number to use for its E911, right? So that way it has the right address for that location or for that person. For your soft phones, so if you're using the VirtualPBX soft phone, you want to make sure Opus is the codec. Other soft phones, you may need to put G711A and G711U over here to right. You just click and drag. All right, you can, and again, you can adjust the E911 for each device. All right, greetings tab. Up here at the top, you can add new greeting, right? You can give it a name, find the file on your computer, upload.wave.mp3, recorded in mono, and then click on create greeting. It will then upload it and show it here. Now, you can't assign a greeting here or unassign a greeting here. It's just showing you where they are. Right, so you've got their name, and then here under source, right, TTS, text to speech. Upload means you uploaded the file. Recording means it was recorded over the phone. Play icon, you can play this, click on the play button here. It should play it back right on your device. If for some reason that doesn't work, you got an option to download it, so you can download it to your computer and use your media player to play it back. And then you've got the little wrench icon here. This allows you to change the name of a file, or if you know you don't need to keep it, you can just delete it. Numbers shows your numbers in use. Again, shows you where your numbers are, right, where they're assigned. You can't unassign them here. You got the little gear icon here, so you can update the caller ID, E911, or PPEN for any number. Spare number tab, this is the numbers you're not currently using. So if you want to remove numbers from your account, you want to make sure they're unassigned first. And then you would click on the numbers you want to get rid of. Right, now I have this option here to delete. It says, are you sure? I confirm the deletion. And now I have 2 less phone numbers on my account. By numbers, right? Local toll free, I would just add them as spare numbers, so then I would assign them later. Port starts the port process. All right. give it a name, choose choose local or toll free. Click next. Now it wants you to upload a PDF copy of your bill from your current carrier, right? So if you're moving, so porting just means moving a phone number from one carrier to another, right? So say from AT&T to VirtualPBX, right? So you want to upload a copy of your AT&T bill in this case. The main things we need for porting is a completed and signed LOA, right? Letter of agency. In this process, there's an option you have the ability to download a blank one and then upload a completed and signed LOA. The LOA will ask for the company name, right, or your name if it's under your name. The address that your current carrier has on file for you. It does need a signature, right? It can be a digital signature file, or you can print it out, sign it manually, and scan it back in. But simply typing your name twice or printing your name twice will get a rejection and delay your port request. You can port multiple numbers at once if you want to. If you're porting numbers from different carriers, you'd want to make them as separate requests just to make it easier for everybody. Generally speaking, toll-free numbers take about 1 week, right? 3 to 5 business days, but from what I've seen, it's almost always almost a full week. Local numbers can vary, anywhere from, I've seen them as quickly as the next business day, all the way up to a couple weeks. Now, that those time frames basically depend on the accuracy of the information we have, right? If there's an error or a rejection, right, we double check to make sure we didn't typo anywhere, or if there's alternate information, like in the case of an address, right? If there's 2 different addresses involved, we try them both, right? But if we go through and there's nothing else that we can adjust on our side, we let you know saying, hey, we got a rejection. Here's the rejection reason. And then you'll need to go to your current carrier to find out what the correct information is in terms of porting out. All right, voicemail boxes shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. If under this user column here, right, they have a name, that means this was a voicemail box created with the user, right, when the user was created. If it's a blank, that means it's a page, the one you created here. So up the top, click on Add New Voicemail Box. You give it a name, you give it a voicemail box number, you give it a PIN number, and then you click on Create New Voicemail. Right. If you click on the little wrench icon here, now you can see its name, its voicemail box number, PIN number. So these 2 pieces of information you would use to check the voicemail messages over the phone, as well as record a new greeting over the phone for that voicemail box. Under Advanced, under Greeting Media, you can also upload a media file or choose one from the pull down from something that's already been selected. Now, the temporary file is for the vacation or out of office message, right? So if you have 2 files selected under media and temporary, the temporary file plays. Right? The media file won't play again until you set the temporary back to none. Then click Save Changes. Recipients, your user voicemail boxes already have 1 recipient built in, right? The email address used for login. But any voicemail box, you can add additional recipients. Just click here where it says Add New Recipient. You enter the email address. If you need to add more, you click on the Add button. Otherwise, you would click on Save Changes. For any voicemail box you create on this page, you want to make sure you add at least 1. And then under Advanced Options, so if a voicemail box already has a media file in place and has a recipient, then you can click on the box in front of Already Set Up. Here's your option to make sure that the voicemail messages are attached to email. And then here's the option to delete those voicemails after the notification is sent if you want to. And then you would click on Save Changes. All right, call logs. This shows your call history on the account. Right, you have today, this week, this month. Obviously, we just started a new month, so there's not a lot of calls. So I'm going to go to Custom here, and you will go to March, and then click Filter. So we have some more calls to work with here. So little green arrow to the right, that's a call coming into the system, right? Inbound call. Yellow arrow to the left, that's an outbound call. You can click on it to get some more details, and normally you can see like devices involved. So here you see the call came in and rang to this particular device, and the call ended normally, right? That's what normal clearing means. And that's typically what you want to see on your call logs. Now you have a little fire extinguisher icon here, excuse me. When you click on that, that's going to create an email for you. It's going to be automatically addressed to support@virtualpbx.com. It's going to have the technical details of the call. Now, there will be no context for us to go by, so you would definitely want to type in the body of the email about why you're sending it in. Right? Sometimes we have enough information from the technical details to have an idea of why you're sending it in, but letting us know specifically why will help us a lot. You can also download for each of these timeframes. It downloads it as a CSV file, so if you're good with spreadsheets, you can get some more information out of your call logs. The system under custom, you can go back up to 1 year. After that, you'd have to contact our support team. Our engineers can go back up to 18 months. After that, the information is not available, and we can't recover it for you. So if you need your call log information for some kind of compliance reasons, I would advise you do this every month. Feature codes, I've talked about a couple of these, but these are ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phone. This is also a page under our support pages, so you don't have to log in to see this information. There's also a PDF there called the Phone Commands Cheat Sheet, which has this information, but also the context help here, so you know how to make use of it. All right, so that's the dashboard. So next up is blacklists. This is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching you, or reaching your system specifically. You would click Edit Blacklists here on the right, and if you don't have a list, you would click on Add. Otherwise, you can just click on an existing list, right? It needs a name, and then you choose, are you blocking anonymous calls or not, right? So anonymous calls means the call is coming in, and it's not presenting valid caller ID information. Right, so if you turn this on, then those calls are not coming through. They're getting a busy tone. Right? If you leave it off, then they're able to get through. Beyond that, you click here where it says add number. You put phone numbers you want to block, right? +1, area code and number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses, and you click add to add more numbers. Once you're done, you would click save. You go back to settings up at the top right, and then you make sure your lists are over here on the right under selected, right? So you might have to click and drag, and then you click update. And now the numbers on these two lists, whenever they try to call any of my numbers on my account, right? So main numbers, numbers assigned to a user, number assigned to a group, numbers assigned to an auto attendant, right? They get busy tone. Faxes, goes to your fax manager. This is an included feature, right? You can get to any fax box on your account, right? So you can see in this case, I'm on the inbound fax tab, so I can see the date, the time, phone numbers involved. I can download the documents. The outbound fax tab, again, choose your fax box, and you can see the outbound fax history. If you see a failure here, this would be, we had a problem communicating with the other phone number. Now, that could be a busy tone, right? That could have been a wrong number was indicated under the email that was sent out. Or it could be like we had initial connection and then something interrupted the call, right? So like, I know older fax machines, right? If someone picked up the handset on the fax machine as it was receiving a fax, that could disrupt that receiving. The email to fax log tabs would show errors where we had a problem processing the request. Right, and that's a little thumb down. So you see the email address involved, right? The format of the email, the to field of the email that was sent out. If you click on the little eyeball icon, that will give you a more information about why, right? In this case, no valid attachment. So this could be that this person forgot to attach a file. If it's the wrong file format, it normally will tell you something else. Here you see that this person wasn't a user on the account, right? This typically shows up when a person uses their personal email address versus their company email address. Number Manager takes you back to your spare number page. Reports will actually open a new tab and take you to reports.virtualpbx.com. This is a plan-specific feature. That's advanced reporting, where you can create your own reports. If you go to our YouTube channel under videos, do a search for advanced reporting demo, and we'll give you an idea of what can be done. If you're interested in this, you would want to speak to our account services team to see if your account already has it and they just need to turn it on, or if you need to change your plan in order to have the feature. Voicemails, this takes you to your voicemail box manager. You can get to any voicemail box on the account. Oops. Right, so you can see their messages. If they have any. But you would see the date, the time, phone numbers involved. You could also listen to them oh, a minute. Oh, there's no voice. I thought I had some voicemails on here. But you could also assign them to other voicemail boxes if you need to. SMS registration. This is if you want to make use of texting. The first page here is basically what the steps are. Right. Second tab is where you start the registration process. Click on the register button. And then the registration status lets you know what the current status is of your SMS registration. Generally speaking, our support team does not have a lot of insight into this. We do have, they have like a set reply in terms of what some of the registration statuses mean. But for the most part, this is handled by our account services team. Call center, this will actually open up a new tab and take you to callcenter.virtualpbx.com. This is the call queues. Under our YouTube channel, you'd want to go do a search for ACD Queues Pro demo, and that will show you what the queues can do. But basically, queues, right, are similar to groups. They're just an advanced version. You have advanced routing options like round robin, which will equalize out over time, or most idle, right, who has been waiting the longest for a call, gets the next call. Also in queues, your staff members can mark themselves away, like they're going away to lunch, and that way they're not offered calls while they're not there. They can also log themselves out, right, at the end of their day, and thus log them in, right? So that way you can have a rotating group of people handling calls to a queue. Also for queues, once you assign staff members to them and to the queues specifically, they can choose what device that they are going to receive calls on from the queue. Right, so that way they know, hey, this is a queue call versus a call coming directly to my extension. Dynamic caller ID. This is a plan-specific feature, meaning it's on some plans, not others. Right. This allows you to create rules to change your outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. The first one I have down here is the 408 area code. If I click edit here, otherwise you would click on create new rule to start a new one. Right. So you give it a name, and then you select the phone number on your account. And then in this case, I'm saying whenever my staff members dial 408, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 669 phone number, right? 669 is an overlay for 408. And I would click on Save Changes. The other one I have up here is like for the LA area. In this case, my staff members need to dial star 550 first, and then the area code and phone number they're reaching out to. And then, again, this is on their VoIP phones. And then the system will change the outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. Monitor, another plan-specific feature. This shows you your status of all your staff members. Right? Doesn't matter what phone they're using. If they're on a call, they'll be in a blue box. You can choose between available and busy, as well as just all. You can choose go by devices versus employees. Under active inbound calls, each of those would have a little blue box showing who they're speaking to, as well as what device they're using. Parked calls, if there's any calls being parked, they would show the caller ID and the parking spot number. Recording Manager, this will open up a new tab and take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. That uses your Dash login information to log in so you can view your recordings. You can download them, delete them, etc. Webhooks is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to link your Dash account to other software. So like Zapier is a primary example, or Amazon Web Services would be the other. So you have to have an account with something else to link to, but this is programming, essentially. But you create new webhook, and you basically fill out the form, click on Create Hook, and then on the other side, link it there. If you want more information, you can talk to our sales team. They actually have more information about the webhooks. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we have done in terms of linking Dash to other software. Also on our YouTube channel, there is a video introduction to Zapier webinar, which will have some samples of webhooks as well. And then lastly, we have the user portal. Every user on your account has access to their own user portal. It defaults them to their voicemail tabs, which they can see their voicemails, right? Play them back, delete them, etc. Call history, staff members can see their call history. Helps if they select a date. And then you click filter so you can see the history of your calls. Faxes only works for users that have their own fax box, but then they can see their fax history. The contact list shows the various users, extensions, groups, queues, etc. This is not something your staff can edit unless they're an admin, right? But even then, it will just show up on everybody. So it's not specific to a user. The conference tab, this is where your staff members can edit their conference settings. So over here on the right, this is where they would adjust the moderator PIN number as well as their participant PIN number. And then are people joining muted or deafened? And then are you playing entry and exit tones? When you're in a conference up here, you can click on the plus icon to invite other Dash users to join your conference. You can lock a conference. You can mute everybody, unmute everybody, and end the conference call. Also, while you're in a conference, each moderator and participant has their own little box. So you can mute a specific person, for example, or even kick out a specific person. And then the settings and devices tabs. So right here, This is where your staff members can set up call forwarding on their own. They just put a little check mark here and then enter the phone number, right? +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses. And then they would click save. And that is everything. I haven't seen any questions come up, so I'll go ahead and end the stream. I thank you for your time today. We'll be here again next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Again, we do record these, so you can share them as necessary. Beyond that, I hope you have a wonderful day.